welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 20. I am Table for Two, and joining me are Mellified and Alien Pickle. How you guys doing?
I am trying to stay dry. It's been raining off and off for like a week here in Texas, and we got another week of rain, which means my grass will grow about 2 feet over the next few days. So I'm going to have some lawn mowing in my future.
Watch out for lions.
It's actually snakes.
I was going to say, are you going to be able to find your chickens?
Well, yeah, we had to mow, like do a quick partial mow just so we could see the chickens because they were getting hard to find.
Unless you have those, like, I was going to say, unless you have those chocobo chickens where the grass just comes up to their knees.
You get some goats that hang out with the chickens, and then they'll like eat the grass down to chicken visible levels.
I am so on board with the goat ownership train. You have no idea, but my wife is not. Yeah, I'm on that. I'm ready to go, but my wife is not a fan. So.
Hey man, goat cheese.
Yeah, then you got to go milk them and stuff. I don't know. But that's a little too intimate for me. Like me, the decorum, right? Like
that's sort of the relationship you want to have with your livestock. Is you guys go over there, I'll feed you occasionally, and we don't really touch each other. Is that
right? Unlike the Luke Skywalker blue milk episode, right? Where everybody was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, he got very handsy with that thing, didn't he? Like. Yeah,
there's a special relationship. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, we so I'm just going to keep the ball rolling here. So we're on episode number 20, and some of you are wondering, well, what happened to episode number 19? That's a great question. It'll forever be known as the infamous lost episode, I believe, at this point. We may go back and re-record that episode, which was actually a really good episode that we did where we talked about our setups and our emulation and all that other stuff. But I guess
the lost episode where we actually explained what the smoke monster was, but
right.
It's gone forever and you'll just never know.
That's right.
Well, the thing is, it was probably our best episode, let's be honest. And
mainly because Jim wasn't here, that's why.
Yes, that's right. I was the smoke.
Wow.
So what happened to your hard drive? Was it your spinner or your SSD that
is my spinner? So as spinners tend to do. So here's my theory, right? I was up late one night, and I know what everybody's going to tell me: backups. I had the means and the capability. I just was not backing up that drive, which had all of my important stuff on it. So you'd think, being the IT person that I am, I would have at least had my own backups, but whatever. It's always the ones that are the professionals that screw it up, right? Like for themselves. But
cobbler's kid has no shoes.
Yep, I was just going to say, that's the expression. Absolutely.
Right. So basically what happened was I was up late one night putting together my new bookshelves that I had gotten, and I think what had happened was when I set the bookshelf up against the table that these hard drives are in a dock on, it hit the table just right to where the hard drive decided to go and just like go stupid. I did a lot of research on it because it's a Seagate drive. I've always ever had problems with Seagate drives or like low tier Western Digitals, right? I've like never had problems with like Western Digital Blacks or higher. I know some people else out there have, but me personally, I've just never run into the issue. But whenever it's come to like a Seagate, man, like a Seagate has always been like my worst enemy. And so basically I was looking online and it's doing this thing where it like when I plug the drive in, it shows 3.86 gigs available. And that usually is an indicator of one of two things. It is either A, bad heads, the heads have gone wacko, and you need to replace the heads and recover the data that way, or it's the firmware's got corrupted. And so if you don't hear any sounds, it's usually the firmware, but if you hear sounds, it's usually the heads. Well, I hear a little buzz whenever I put it in, just when I first turn it on, and then after that you don't hear any bad sounds. So if I really wanted to try and recover the drive, I could probably go and find a donor drive of the same make and model and just try and replace the heads in the hard drive, just so I can then clone the drive and pull the data off. But I don't even know if the energy and the effort's worth it, because I did find, besides the lost episode, I did find all of my important stuff, such as my wedding photos, for example. So thankfully, we had an extra copy of those somewhere else, and my wife is not mad at me, so we're good.
I was gonna say, we were discussing, we were drawing up the schedule of which couch you were gonna sleep on which day.
Yeah, that's right.
Since you were gonna be divorced, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that didn't happen.
Right. So the hard drive went kaput. It did kill all of my emulators that I had set up. It did kill a lot of my working files. All of the podcast material for the podcasts that we've already done got lost. But thankfully, we do have like final copies uploaded to our hosting provider. So if we ever need to, like, I'm going to pull copies of those back down and then back them up into my own archive, because I'm now using some cloud backup solutions and stuff like that. So I finally have everything being backed up properly, so I don't have to ever deal with this bullshit again. So,
well, one of the things that I've run into, I'm terrified of losing data. I keep multiple copies of everything, but one of the things that I have run into is there is obviously a lag time from, say, finishing recording an episode and how long it takes to get up to the cloud, especially if you're on, cable-based internet, because your upstream is so anemic typically. So there is still a window of opportunity to lose that data.
Yep.
And I've got a NAS set up with just single drive redundancy, because I'm cheap. But that, I feel like, is at least enough protection that the data that I'm worried about losing before it gets to the cloud is protected.
Well, that's the next step, right? So I do have a 14 terabyte MyBook external drive that I am going to hook up and do my local backups, because they always say one is none, right? You have one backup, that's not good enough.
Yep.
What about just for a temporary working folder? I would say Windows 10, you have OneDrive built in, right? So you make OneDrive the folder that you work in, and then it's automatic real-time streamed up.
Well, that's actually not. I don't use OneDrive, but I am using the Google File Stream. So I'm using the Google File Stream as my working drive, because I have pretty much unlimited data with them at this point. And so they're my working drive, actually. So I do use them for my backup. So I do have a backup side, right? And then I'm using my the file stream side as my working directory. So as soon as it's like done, it starts syncing it up to the cloud. But like Mellified pointed out, I do want to have a local backup just in case, because what if your internet goes out in the middle of an upload? What if you're, whatever. So.
Right.
We did, Hunter, just so you know, we did have 17 chia farmers just join the Discord, all asking how much you want for that 14 terabyte in my book.
Yeah. No doubt.
They've
got everything wired.
That chia cryptocurrency crap is ridiculous, dude. I was sharing that article with people at work, because these, a lot of these guys, they don't keep up with like all these latest trends, because they're just kind of like set in their ways. And so when I like unloaded this information on them, their jaws all hit the floor.
Yeah, I was looking at hard drives even a month ago. A 16 terabyte drive was between $300 and $400. Pretty much whatever brand you wanted. If you wanted a Western Digital Red, if you wanted an Exos Seagate drive, it was in that neighborhood, $300 to $400. They are now, one, impossible to find, and two, if you can find them, it's somebody scalping them for 2 to 3x the original price. So they're going for $800 to $1,200.
So at work, we're retiring a couple of storage arrays because they're like over 5 years old. but they'll still work, right? So usually corporate places will just wipe the disk, right? Zero it so none of your stuff's on it, and then they pay the vendor to come take it away. And it's like, well, wait, why don't you sell that? Because the vendor's going to sell it, but you're paying them to come get it to sell it. So it seems like a great stupidity. But
also zeroing a drive is also never like fully.
Well, I'm talking about like we zero the disks multiple times, right? We'll write, patterns on it and stuff, and it takes like I think 4 complete writes of the thing. And then for the system disks, which is like the first 4 in the chassis, then I have a degosser that looks like a microwave oven, and I stick the disks in there and bake them for like 10 minutes. So those are really dead. And then the other stuff, whatever, But my point is though that I have like 80 terabytes of disk that we're gonna dispose of, right? And now that we're in the chia-ing of crypto, I feel like corporate needs to think about how they can like sell that thing for more than we bought it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well,
one of the things too is a lot of chia farmers are, and they're called farmers, it's a whole nomenclature, are using home machines. So it's SATA drives. They're not SAS, which I'm sure, or fiber channel, which I'm sure your storage array is.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to do it cheap, but they want to do it cheap and fast. So they do it on SSDs. But turns out it will just absolutely murder an SSD because SSD can only like rewrite the same blocks X number of times. And that's apparently how Chia works, is it just like continuously reuses the same blocks over and over and over.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, but I think it's just ridiculous. I'm not a big fan of all this at all. So
it's all terrible. Like, because it turns out the only way to actually have value of a virtual thing is if you're consuming a physical resource in order to produce it.
Yep. Well, let's I'm getting information here. It's funny, Mellified, you're asking me in our little side chat here if we should just make this the topic episode, even though I already called this episode number 20. You get all like mental on your numbers there.
We could re-record the intro.
But no, what we're gonna do though is we're gonna go ahead and shift right into the news. Right. So that's been our little intro bit there. So a little bit of information on the infamous lost episode number 19. We might re-record and just re-upload something and call it 19 at a later date. All right. Man, there's been some happenings over the last few weeks, it looks like here, Mellified. So why don't you start us off here?
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna start with God, well, it's hard to pick. Nintendo announced a new game builder garage game, which they're trying to make it into a make your own games at home, your own mini game type of system. It's very cutesy. It's very visual programming based.
Was it like lessons learned from the popularity of Mario Builder that we're going to put a just generic game builder on the platform? Or
yeah, I think that's it. And it's also like the educational bid, right? Because now you can buy a Switch and get this game and it'll help your kid learn to program, and what a wonderful thing. And of course the kid will never play it, but it's only going to be $30, which is certainly a bit of a surprise from Nintendo. So it'll be interesting to see how this does, but they've built in a whole sharing system apparently, so you'll be able to make your little mini games and then share them with friends, which of course means there will be dicks, because anytime you allow user uploaded content, there are dicks.
So you need kind of dick filtering AI.
Yep. I'm sure they exist.
You'll have to train the dick AI by like suddenly all of our captures will be like click on every frame that is a hot dog,
Oh no.
and then we're treating the Nintendo dick AI.
Yes, we'll just show it pictures of the eggplant emoji.
There you go. So this next one is actually quite interesting, and I find it also slightly disgusting that there's people out there that happen to have this. But Steam fixes a bug for gamers with over 25,000 titles in their library. Did you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be like all the people with media accounts for sure.
Well, yeah, but so apparently Steam would just crash if you had over 25,000 titles in your library. I don't know what happened, like if you were just at like 24,999, but like when you hit
database table was only so.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you consider the fact that Steam has over 30,000 games and rising in their entire database, of whatever, it's just kind of funny to me that this was even a bug in the first place, because clearly there's got to be somebody at Valve who works for Valve that has their library full.
QA in Valve would have all of the games in their Steam client, right? Because you have to actually look at every game. So yeah, the shocker is they haven't encountered it earlier. That's
Well, knowing Valve, somebody encountered it 3 years ago, and they're just fixing it now.
There you go.
Shots fired.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm at 3,550 games. So 25,000, pretty impressive by my standards. I remember calling Microsoft support when the original Xbox came out, and I needed help with something. And the guy was shocked at how many DLCs I had bought on the original Xbox, because I had bought all of the arcade games you could get as like downloadable games. And he had never seen anybody with that many in their account before, and apparently he had to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through their customer service UI.
Yeah, what about hardcore gamer do you not understand? Like what
Seriously. But knowing that about me, that I am the one who will buy one of everything, I only have 3,500 Steam games. So what does that tell you about the people with 25,000? Holy crap.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Real stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of games.
A lot of bad games too. Like, let's be honest.
There's plenty of shovelware on there. So
even if you bought the best 25,000, that's still a lot of bad games.
A thing though was they had, and this is why I think that they had to change the policy about like how long or how many copies of a game had to get sold before you could put Steam cards, the trading card stuff in it, because apparently it was almost like a crypto mining currency in Steam cards. So people would buy anything that's 99 cents to extract the Steam cards out, because you could sell the cards for more than what the game cost. Somehow.
Aren't Steam cards just like the original NFC at this point? I
don't understand why they have any value at all. Like I could see, like, if you collect enough Steam cards, you could turn them in for a discount or something, but it doesn't. It never translates back to money. So why do they have value? I can't.
Well, they have value because people have put value on them, right? There are collectors who are trying to have every Steam card, which seems like a ridiculous effort in light of the fact that any idiot with $100 can make a game, put it on Steam, and give you some, some cards. But people collect weird stuff. I mean, it's just, one of those things, I guess.
Well, the whole like collector hobby is sort of a new phenomena, I think. I mean, it used to be art and stuff. Now we collect weird things.
Yeah.
Well, in some interesting Mass Effect news, so we'll do the bad before the good. So there's been a lot of reporting apparently of the new Mass Effect Legendary Edition now that it's out. People are talking about how they're having some issues with it, a lot of crashing issues. One Reddit user talked about how when they're just walking around the Citadel, all of a sudden the game will just completely disappear, but they can still keep hearing the sound. And then once posting that, there've been a few other people that have also talked about that. They're also having that issue. Just some other like minor things here and there. Of course, we know that there's one particular piece of minor DLC that's not included because they couldn't find this, the source code for it, so they couldn't bring that into the new game. But in my opinion, no matter what you do, unless you completely do a fresh remake, there's nothing that can really fix Mass Effect 1.
That's the thing, because I just got done beating Mass Effect 1 for the first time, right? And it was okay. It's like a 6 out of 10 kind of game to me.
Sure.
And Mass Effect 2 is like 9.5 out of 10 to me.
Well,
so.
and that's what I'm getting at, because if you've jumped into the Mass Effect series, say at like number 2, which in my opinion is the best of the trilogy. Like,
and you don't need to play 1.
It ruins playing 1. Like, if you try and go back and play 1, not having played it, but playing 2 first, like, you're not going to enjoy yourself. In my opinion.
1 feels like KOTOR and Dragon Age, like, stuck together in a strange marriage that didn't quite work.
Right. I mean, the story is there, and there's and for the time when Mass Effect came out, it was definitely good. Like, it got a lot of really good buzz. A lot of people really liked it. But the series, in my opinion, only got better as the games kept coming out. Even though 3 is still just as good as 2 in a lot of ways, I still think number 2 in the series is just like a shining beacon of, like, to me, it's like a gold standard for doing space or sci-fi RPGs. Like, if you want to do a really good space/sci-fi RPG, look to Mass Effect 2 as like a template.
I'll say it's one of the only RPGs ever that I remembered the name of all of my NPC buddies at the end and actually gave a damn about whatever their stories were, right? So that's a feat in itself, is to actually craft NPCs. Like, everybody remembers Minsk from the Baldur's Gate stuff, right? Him and his hamster. But can you name all the other ones? No. But anyway, my disappointment, though, was they said that they were redoing all of the games in the Mass Effect Andromeda engine, right? So that's why the graphics are going to come up. So I expected Mass Effect 1 would have consistent character models from the other games, and it doesn't.
And you would think it would also be able to play better, but that can make it consist of being a remake instead of a remaster. And that's what I was saying. Like, I think in order to fix Mass Effect 1, they'd have to completely remake it.
Which wouldn't have been a bad thing, but probably wouldn't have been a cost-effective thing. But by God, selling me this for $60, this thing that I already own.
Honestly, the Legendary Edition, I think, is worth it for 2 and 3 alone. I mean, like, yes, you get 1, but it really is worth it for 2 and 3 alone, I feel like. And there's a ton of content there.
There's an interesting bit of history here. When they did Mass Effect 2 for PlayStation, they didn't have the rights to Mass Effect 1 because Mass Effect 1 was a Microsoft exclusive at the, originally. And they've since, those rights have changed, whatever. That's how they're able to do the Legendary Edition. But what they did on the PlayStation, because you couldn't play 1, is they gave you an interactive comic book you played through to make all the choices so that you would seed your game of 2 with the choices you would have made. And I kind of wish that we had that instead of Mass Effect 1, or at least the option.
Or the option. Give us the option.
Edition.
Yeah, give us the option.
You have it, actually. Whenever you start a game of Mass Effect 2 in the new Legendary, it asks if you want to do the comic book or import your save.
Oh.
Nice.
Good to know. I like that. I mean, so Legendary Edition just went up in my book. All right. So for the good news, though, there has been a new event in No Man's Sky, where if you do this expedition, like quest line, I believe it is, you will actually get a prize at the end of that quest line for you'll get your own Normandy. So it'll be like another frigate in the fleet, if you will,
It's very disappointing you don't actually get to fly it around.
No, unfortunately, no.
It could have been like a mini Normandy, like a Shriner go-kart from the parades, right?
Yeah. Like a clown car Normandy.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's funny. But no, yeah. But that's really cool though, because it's a limited time thing. You can actually go in and do this quest line and unlock your own Normandy frigate in No Man's Sky. So I think that's pretty cool that they did a little bit of a crossover there. It's I wouldn't say awkward. It's a unique crossover. It's not the first time we've seen games do crossovers. Like we saw a lot of Half-Life stuff and Death Stranding, for example, when Death Stranding came over to PC. To me, that kind of was like a cool nod to the fact that it's coming to PC, right? It's like, hey. But I mean, you have companies that have similar publishers or similar development teams. So like, when you play Forza Horizon 4, for example, like you have Master Chief's Warthog. That's under the same roof of Microsoft, so that kind of makes sense. But then they did some stuff with Cyberpunk, and you can get the Cyberpunk car in Forza Horizon 4. So it's cool when you see these little crossover events to do promotions and stuff like that for people. I guess Fortnite's pretty notorious at this point for doing all kinds of crossover shenanigans inside of their game. I think some of the Star Wars stuff they did was pretty infamous as well.
I think Fortnite is interesting in that it's blazing the trail for other people to then say, well, here's how Fortnite did it, so we'll do, right? It's like they're making the initial negotiations, setting the precedent, and then other people can cite that to get their deals done better.
Sure. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So.
Just another it's not evil, even though they are.
Right, and well, I just noticed another piece of news on here that I missed about Mass Effect. That's kind of back on the tail end of the not good stuff. But the changes on the photo of Tally's face, for example, was kind of an interesting. That one was weird.
All right. Well, let's talk about the glaring omission of multiplayer, because like Mass Effect 3, one of the things that you had to do in order to get the great endings was you had to play a lot of multiplayer with other people, because that would up your galactic
readiness, yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So they nerfed that out, but they took multiplayer away entirely, and they were saying, well, we may bring it back, but it'll take development resources to do. So if we sell enough copies of the game, maybe we'll reward you.
What's funny there, I had the max galactic score but never touched the multiplayer, and the reason was there was a mobile app that had like a stupid management game on it that you could do instead too.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, I distinctly remember never touching the multiplayer in 3 because it had EA bucks that you could buy for it, and I was turned off by that.
Well,
but
if memory serves,
you could do it in the mobile app.
If memory serves, the multiplayer was mostly like surviving waves of onslaught of whatever.
It was horde mode. It was like a clone of Gears of War.
Gears of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool, right? And if you own Mass Effect Andromeda, that it's there, right? It's very similar. It's not the same, but what is in Andromeda?
No. Oh, poor Andromeda.
Tally's
face.
I was gonna say I liked Andromeda though, especially after they fixed stuff. I enjoyed playing through that game. I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but
no, it's not terrible now. It's okay. It just
was a little too samey, like climbing up those stupid towers and pushing the button or whatever over and over and over. And yes, the puzzles were a little bit different, but they weren't interesting enough to me.
I just didn't find the story as interesting as Mass Effect 2, right? Like,
sure.
We
again, gold standard.
Well, you have the grand story of like 3 games. You're building up to this Reaper invasion, and then it happens. And, okay, so how do you follow that? Well, now we're kind of back to like some random ass content on planets, and this doesn't feel high stakes like what just happened, even though it is super high stakes, right? Because we have to settle these people that were going to wake up out of stasis kind of thing.
Right.
But
And for what it
doesn't have the same gravity.
And for what it's worth, it also takes place like a long time after the events of Mass Effect 3, because the expedition leaves during the events of Mass Effect 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And then they make it into this other galaxy well after. It was like, what, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm probably wrong. I feel like it was like 900 years or something like that.
600.
Yeah, 600. So I mean, it was a while. So anyway, yeah,
Mass Effect 4, and I want Mass Effect 4 to be about what the galaxy is like now that everybody is trapped in systems together.
Well, that's what they're alluding to.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want to see, like, we don't have this cheap and easy interstellar travel anymore. So
well, the tease trailer that they did for the new Mass Effect kind of alludes to that. So I'm kind of curious. I'm really curious to see where they go with it. But moving on to some other just general like industry news, though. This one was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure still what to make of all this or like what it really means for us. But AT&T is spinning off its Warner Media, which they were trying to make such a huge push into Hollywood, and I feel like now they're abandoning that entirely. I'm not. Was the HBO Max stuff just not working out? Like I'm really confused here.
Well, AT&T's really struggled to get into TV in general, right? They've had Uverse for a long time, but it requires a ton of infrastructure build out, so it's very expensive, and they're not getting the uptake they wanted.
Right, go ahead and continue. Sorry.
Then they bought DirecTV because satellite doesn't require infrastructure. And then they said, oh, well, this whole internet TV thing seems to be taking off. So they did DirecTV Now, which was a bundle of TV channels that you could get digitally. And it was very cheap early on. And
very.
One of the things that it did, because a previous administration removed net neutrality as a requirement, was if you had AT&T cell phone service, DirecTV Now did not go against your data cap. So it was hugely advantageous to do it when you're, say, riding in an RV, for example. Right. I don't know anyone who does that. Oh, wait, me. So that's where, I remember it very clearly. And then the prices like doubled for DirecTV Now, and they started losing subscribers, like millions of subscribers.
Wow.
And they got out of that business. And then they bought HBO, and they thought, okay, well, we'll tie everything to HBO, and HBO will give it away for free to our cell phone customers. And HBO is big, but like they immediately went in and started making changes and telling them how to do stuff. And that, of course, didn't go well. So HBO has not been doing well. And now they're left with a bunch of businesses that they've run into the ground, basically. And they're trying to figure out what to do with it. They're losing, billions of dollars. So apparently
they paid a shit ton of money for businesses that were like on the cliff edge of, about to fall into complete redundancy. And somehow they ended up scooping up a bunch of that right before it was irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's irrelevant. Surprise. And what do we do with it?
Well, and what they're going to do is sell portions of Warner Media, which is the overall holding company, to the parent of Discovery Channel. And one of the things that's kind of weird and unfortunate is the gaming division under Warner includes NetherRealm Studios, who do Injustice and Mass Effect, Mortal Kombat. It includes a few other companies and that's going to be split up. So they're actually going to lose. Some of the companies are going over here, and some are going over there.
Here's what I hate about all this. I'm not a fan of who they're selling to. And the reason why I say that is I've seen enough things get sold to Discovery in years past that just go away.
G4.
Well, the G4 stuff, but even like after the G4 stuff was there was a whole slew of people from Tech TV and G4 that formed another network called Revision 3. And Revision 3 was building up and doing a lot of really cool things. and then they sold themselves off to Discovery, and all that stuff just got washed away, and there was a huge mess, and it turned really bad. Like, I think there was another thing called like Hack 5 that was involved with some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
And Discovery was like re-uploading all of their videos onto their own network and like trying to monetize it. And it was like, hold on a second. So like it just became like a whole huge mess at one point. And I've just never really been a fan of like anytime Discovery's like scoop stuff up, it just seems to like ruin the thing, and like it just turns it sour, you know. And then
Their own channel. It's like we started out as Discovery Channel, and it was like History Channel, right? And there was actually educational whatever, and now it's turned into like
like reality TV, and
reality TV stuff,
Pawn Stars, and like, you know, and it's not to say that some of these things aren't entertaining, because Pawn Stars for a while there, at least, you know, I used to watch it when, you know, I had cable, but like at the end of the day, it does kind of ruin a thing when you're just trying to go for the cheap, you know, money grabs. You know, you burn out a name, or then you sit on IP for forever. I mean, it happens to games all the time. This is why you certain things you've just never seen remakes or releases or digital releases for, because.
Do you remember that year when we had the TV writers strike? And
dude, right? Very much.
So that is why we have reality TV like we do, because you don't need writers, you just need people.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm so, and this is the kind of the scenario that we're in. So like ever since then, you can look through. It's been, I don't necessarily say it's like a correlation of like, hey, this is exactly what has caused this, but I mean, when you look at when that happened, right, and then you see the increase in streaming technology, you see from that point, you see an increase in people cutting cords, because they're not interested in stuff on television as much anymore. There's more interesting content coming out on the internet all the time, and as more and more like the years go on, it's just like, you know, because for a while there you could just like watch Netflix. Like, who needs Blockbuster? Who needs Redbox? Who needs, you know, when I can get everything that I want to from Netflix? Because Netflix caused a big stir in the middle of all this too, when you talk about how you consume content and the kinds of content that you can get your hands on. And it became a cascading effect to, I feel like, where we're at today, where now these companies are going like, okay, people are cutting cords, so we're going to pull all of the content we own and put it behind our own paywall, instead of putting it like doing some deal on some TV network or TV channel, or because, you know, things were regional, right? Like if you had Comcast, you got a whole bunch of stuff, but if you didn't have Comcast, if you have some kind of like local regional television provider, you might not get certain things that people on like the West Coast got, right? You know, that there was that kind of a thing too. Just like, well, I never grew up with that show. I never even heard of it. You know, so it's like, and that's where things become weird too, because now you're looking at like online. It's kind of goofy when you look at certain things too internationally, like with the whole Star Trek Picard and those kinds of things, where they made deals with Netflix, where over in the UK you could watch those shows over on Netflix, but over in the US you actually had to have like the Paramount or whatever, you know, the CBS Plus, you know, streaming stuff. Like, this whole thing has just cascadedly gotten drastically confusing, and it's a mess. I really think it's worse now than it was before. So
the thing that I'm surprised about is like HBO, those kind of places, even Netflix, which you have to make shows for Netflix, right? Or if not shows, then a movie, right? But it's traditional long format entertainment thing. And then you have the other part of internet culture, which is Twitch and YouTube. And so now we have the content consumers are actually creating content for their peers, right? So it's the citizens making for the citizens, and we are not dependent on the corporate tit anymore.
Right. Well, here's the other thing that I've noticed too. A new trend that has been going on for a couple of years now at this point, and I think Disney kind of did a revolutionary of this. I think even some stuff with Netflix and on Amazon, for example, instead of doing like, let's say like a single one-off film or a couple of films, what you'll see a long form mini series. So you tell it's kind of like the Mandalorian effect, or the WandaVision's a great example of this.
Yeah,
so
you get like 6 or 8 episodes that become a thing.
And then like it just that's the story. And I think anime for years has been operating like this, right? Like you watch like Cowboy Bebop, for example, was like a 26 episode, I think 25, 26 episode show, and that was it. There was no seasons. It just like ran for like that long to tell that one story, and then that was it.
Which is honestly nice, because whenever we have a show in our culture that becomes successful, then you have to milk it until people hate it. So,
and that's where you get in. That's where you get into Lost, right? Because then they didn't know what to do with it because they had to keep the show going because people were so intrigued, and then they never answered the questions. So
and then they let that guy make Star Wars. Oh,
yeah. Woo! Shots fired. But anyway,
Wow.
we've sat on that for a little while long, but it definitely is an interesting market to be in, because now instead of paying for a single cable thing, you're paying a whole bunch of microtransactions to 1,000 different streaming providers just to get your content now, and it gets messy.
Well, but what I find kind of interesting, right? I need to ride this horse just a little bit more.
Okay.
Is whenever you look at the budget of making a reality television show, right, and how much does it earn, compare that to some of the top Twitch streamers that make probably the budget of a show in a month of their content through donations and ad revenue and whatever. But it makes me also wonder, like, okay, so if you're making income, you could actually fund a more involved production. Like, why is it that also all of the streaming content is reality television? It just happens to be a single person sitting in front of a webcam instead of a production, right, where there's multiple cameras.
And for a while there, though, you also had what am I looking for? Manufactured drama, right, where you have different YouTubers who would stir up fake drama just for the views and to do a cool story thing, or whatever it is.
And that's almost like the channel is the character, so different channels drama with and it would share audience between, right? So that was interesting, but I'm surprised though that nobody has made like higher level production quality actual like mini series things for YouTube content or whatever, because it's, I don't know, maybe that's just a thing that because we're older and we remember, like, I grew up watching Knight Rider, right? So I'm used to, this is what a show is. It's Battlestar Galactica. It's episodes of highly produced whatever. And it takes an hour to consume an episode, where maybe now the mindset is, hey, I just need my my interpersonal drama fix. I can do it in a format where I can actually interact with the show because I'm in the audience, and we have audience interaction sometimes. And then it's also short form if it's YouTube, because 15 minutes or less and we're out, right? So you don't have all that.
For what it's worth, there's two things I want to hit on this, and then we can move on. The one that I really appreciate, and I know that I say this even though I don't like Disney, but what Disney's doing with some of their shows right now, I think, is right, because they'll release an episode once a week. So they're not like letting you sit there and then binge the whole thing. And some people are mad about that because they just want I just want to watch it all. I think it's good to have time between episodes to let you process it and talk about it and get excited about what's happening. Because I'm watching The Bad Batch right now, which is the new Star Wars thing, and I love what Dave Filoni has been doing with that series. So like with the Clone Wars, with The Bad Batch, even some of the Rebels stuff was okay, but specifically his story that he's been telling through the Clone Wars to the Bad Batch stuff is just really good, and I look forward to, at the end of my week, being able to sit down and watch the next episode of this show and these characters and that kind of thing. I kind of miss that. I miss that form.
Well, it actually, whenever you drop like the entire season of something, then you lose the anticipation factor and the joy of that, right? So So it's like you don't have any kind of a buildup of expectations and whatever. You don't have personal conversations that is word of mouth PR for your show, right? I remember back when Desperate Housewives was the thing, right? And we would go out to dinner, and without fail, like two tables around us were talking actively about Desperate Housewives, right? And it's just like, oh my God, everybody is talking about this show,
right?
That I could take it or leave it. Eva Longoria kind of hot, but but other than that, whatever, right?
Sure.
But it had the mind of the country, and culturally we were interacting with that show. But if you'd have just dropped the whole thing, then well, that's what it was. Hey, did you see it? Yeah, right. But there was no snowball of PR that happened, and I agree with you. I think releasing things episodically, slow drip, is the better way.
I think I've been watching for the first time for me Blacklist, which was a 9-season or 7-season run, and there was a mystery kind of overarching each season, and a big mystery that they didn't really answer until the end of the series. And it was really interesting to go back on Reddit and read the discussion threads for each episode as we were watching, because you kind of got that experience, even though I'm watching it, 10 years later or something. So there are some ways to sort of recapture a little bit of that, but it's not the same, right? Because it's not interactive, and people don't remember the stuff.
Well, that and you don't have the entire culture that's interested in sync with anticipation. So
well, who knows what's going to happen with AT&T and this Warner stuff? It'll be interesting to follow. But
I how we got here.
that's where it is. So moving forward, though, Apple's lawyers. I want Mellified to read this one.
Well, you deleted it from the show notes. Just
no, I didn't. It was two. It was two up.
Oh,
no,
you moved
there's
it.
two. It was two. There was two copies of it, so I just deleted the second.
Well, I wanted 2 copies. It's that important.
Then read it.
So there's a big lawsuit right now. Epic Games sued Apple and Google, which always seems to get left out when people talk about this story. But they sued both of them over having to pay money to sell V-Bucks in the Apple Store and the Google Store, the App Stores specifically for mobile. And this has been, we mentioned, I think, last news episode, there's been lots of juicy tidbits coming out of this. There is a character in... This is so stupid. There is a character in Fortnite called Peely, which came out in one of the random seasons, and it's a giant banana. So the idea was it looks like an anthropomorphic banana. It's got arms and legs, but it's a banana. And he started off in a yellow peel. And then, as Fortnite does, because their whole business model is selling skins so you can look pretty or cool when you're playing the game,
when you're
they decided to make
whatever.
They decided to make variations of this Peely character, and one of them was him with his peel like half down, so like he was shirtless, but he's a banana. He has no, humanistic, like humanoid form beyond arms, legs, eyes, and a mouth. And eventually they made a naked Peely where he's just in a swimsuit. And Apple tried to claim that this was somehow inappropriate.
Because Peely,
so let me hang on. Let me read the transcript.
On the hot tub streams. And
hold on.
Let me read the transcript, because this is I don't want to mess this up. This is too good. Epic lawyer. There might have been an implication that showing Peely without a suit might have been inappropriate. Lawyer shows a picture of naked Peely in court. Is there anything inappropriate about Peely without clothes? Weisinger. It's just a banana, ma'am. That was in court. Federal. They're wasting time and money in court having this conversation. Like,
that's amazing.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
It is so dumb.
I do love this.
God.
I relish the absurd. It's my main form of entertainment.
And what this had to do with was itch.io being those itch.io games are available through the Epic Store, and itch.io is kind of the Wild West in terms of content, and so Apple was trying to claim that games such as Sisterly Lust would be adult category, and then they somehow threw in Peely the Naked Banana into that list of offending content. So yeah, I think we're all a little bit dumber for having
I
heard
feel
that
like,
story.
I feel like they took a phallic object and then they were like, okay, is a phallic object offensive with clothes, without clothes? You know?
Why does the phallic object have clothes if it's a phallic object? Anyway, all right.
It would be like take an actual penis and then put it in a thong. Is it now okay?
Well, it's like like the genital jousting game. It's like, I mean, you want to talk about offensive, that has more inclination to be an offensive thing than a banana in Fortnite. I'm sorry.
Just a banana.
It's a banana. It's
just a banana, man.
You can go to the store and buy. It's not like it's a dildo. Come on. It's a
well, you can go to the store and buy it, but anyway.
On a more upbeat note, I'm going to change the topic because this is just so stupid.
Yeah,
right,
go ahead.
On a really uplifting note, Xbox celebrated Global Accessibility Awareness Day recently. I highlighted this story in our Discord on the day of. I really have a lot of respect, whether you are a PlayStation fan, a PC, Master Race person, or an Xbox fan. You got to give Microsoft respect for the work that they've done on accessibility. I know so many folks who served our country as in the military, and during that service were injured. And having accessible games means that they, despite the loss of use of parts of their body, can still enjoy games is spectacular. And I have so much respect for Microsoft for investing in something that, quite frankly, there is never going to pay off, right? They are never going to make back the years of research and development they put into the accessible controller and things like that. But I'm so glad they did, because it just makes a whole bunch of people's lives better. And I think we can all, respect that.
I super appreciate that they're doing it not as a look at us, look how whatever virtue signal thing, right? So it's not like, well, we did this at a loss for PR points. It's actually, no, we did it because we wanted to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Versus corporate reason.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things they did, so in addition to the accessibility controller that's been out for a few years now, they actually published new, as part of Global Accessibility Awareness Day this year, published new guidelines to help game developers make sure that they are making their game accessible. I will say that has been, I think, pretty successful. I've seen a lot more accessibility options and menus in games over the last few years. Hunter, you and I started playing It Takes Two last night, and I was amazed at the number of accessibility options that were in that game, yet there was no toggle for VoIP, which I found sort of ridiculous. But it's awesome that they have those accessibility features, even if they forgot, simple basic features like a voice toggle.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Some interesting rumors, but I think probably my exciting topic for this week we have a ton of tech news. Probably the one that got me the most worked up, though, was the revelation about the Days Gone PC port privacy policy, which allows the developer, this is a Sony exclusive PS5 game, console exclusive PS5 or PlayStation game, not specifically PS5. Came out about a year ago. They recently released it for PC, and lo and behold, if you look at the privacy policy, they are allowed, per the privacy policy, to record every keystroke on your computer and send it up to their servers while the game is running.
They can dig through your files. They can do whatever the hell they want.
Yep.
Enumerate.
Yep.
It's not just like we can look at your running processes and judge. No. This is like installing a phone app that says, "Oh, I need your dialer, your contacts, your camera, your microphone, your everything." And it's like, why? You're a calendar app.
Well, and in this case, this is a single player game, right? We've sort of accepted, I think, as a community, that there's at least some need for invasiveness to try to minimize cheaters, although the cheaters always seem to get around those restrictions anyway. So I kind of...
It's like that Valorant DRM that took it to a new level. But you have to be online anyway. But this being a single player thing, also by definition, you should not have to be online. But that was the first offense that games kind of normalized was, oh, now I have to be constantly connected to even play the game. Well, now it's like, well, this thing wants to collect all my info, and I can opt out to the lesser evil policy, right? Where they still get way too much, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot firewall block the game, right? So there's no way to deny this game transmitting everything that it's collecting. And it's pretty amazing. If you firewall it, you'll get about 40 hits against the firewall a second that it's trying to send so much stuff, right? It's like a fire hose. So that's bullshit. So I would say if you own a legal copy, probably go seek out the version that has been provided by the fan base out there that doesn't actually have DRM, and overwrite the executable so that you can then firewall it. Because even if you do that, it still tries to call home. So they didn't neuter that. They just broke the need to be copy protected. So still firewall it though. Yep. The game's pretty dope. Say.
Yeah. That's why I actually have it on PlayStation, and I was looking at picking it up for PC, and then I saw this, and it really turned me off.
It's not super offensive, right? Like, oh yeah, take all my PlayStation data, whatever. I don't care. You ain't gonna see nothing.
Yeah.
If you're on my PC, you might see things you can't unsee. So
yeah, that's probably the unintended consequence of this, right? Is they've got some poor interns who are scarred for life from having seen what's on Jim's PC. Little did they know. Another interesting one, a couple tech things with the consoles. The PlayStation 5's compression technology. This is one of the big things the new generation of consoles brought us, is dedicated compression, decompression pipelines for games. Big surprise, it works. You can actually reduce file sizes of games. If we could only get Call of Duty to actually use this technology, we might save some drive space. Because holy smokes, I went through the other night, and Modern Warfare with Warzone and all of the content is over 200 gigs now of disk space. It is out of control.
Yeah,
so hopefully we'll.
No, I'm done.
Did you see the article that I linked that was from Fit Girl, the person that does all the repack stuff? And she went on Reddit and talked at length about the compression technology that games use by standard, which is fairly terrible. And then what she does, which unfortunately, if you like super compress the stuff, then it takes a long time to unpack and a lot of CPU. So that's why they lightly compress things. So maybe. I don't know, like the sweet spot has to be like this thing needs to decompress fast. And now that we have SSDs, it has to really decompress fast because the fire hose of data coming off the disk is 10 times faster. So
well, Jim, let's sit down by the fire, and I'm going to tell you a story. about the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which have at this point CPUs that are about 13 years old, yet those are still the standard systems that games run on,
Right.
because they make up roughly 60% of the market, maybe a little bit more. Sorry, PC Master Race folks, you are not the majority. Because consoles are still the primary target and they have such anemic CPUs, that is the cause of this crappy compression. Because the game makers were hearing everybody complain about 1 and 2 minute level loading times, and so they took a look at their pipeline and they went, well, we're spending, a minute and 30 seconds of those 2 minutes actually waiting for the CPU to decompress all of our textures when we read them in from disk.
Right.
So
not only that, but you and I have had the conversation before about how there are multiple copies of the same texture.
Well,
because
yes.
of read linearity.
Yep. Yeah, because they're also hard drive based. So you want to write all of the data you need in one contiguous block. So they will take level 1 and write level 1. And if you need the same wall texture in level 2, they'll write it in on the disk for level 2 sequentially as well. So all of that combined means that it is in the game maker. Well, this is the point I want to get at. We as gamers complained about loading times, and the game developers went, okay, we can fix that. We're just going to use twice as much disk space. Sorry, and so we're stuck living with this legacy from 13 years ago because of these old consoles. And the hope was, the new consoles, the new generation was going to fix all this because it's so much more advanced. It's got much, much better CPUs. It's got the optimized pipelines for getting assets off of SSD into memory. The SSDs are, big 100 times faster. The problem has been the worldwide, COVID has screwed it up for everybody, because COVID caused a shortfall in component manufacturing in China. And now we can't get these new consoles because they literally can't build them fast enough. So we're in a situation where game makers are still catering to the majority, which is the PS4 and Xbox One. And that's probably not going to change for another couple years, unfortunately. Now, there was some hope that things like smart delivery on the Xbox, PlayStation 5 has dedicated PS5 versions. The game makers could optimize their pipelines for those systems, but that's more work, right? They have to go in and make a special case for everything and redo the entire packaging, code, which they will do if they're building a new game that's only for the new consoles. But as long as they're supporting the old ones, who's going to bother?
Well, I've noticed, like, some games, if I download like a demo that is like the first level of the game, I'm downloading as many gigs as the whole game. And it's just like, okay, are you just dropping the whole asset wad here and then like just cutting out the ability of the executable to play the other things, and that's why it's a demo, or what? Because but my thought, like that whole just in time delivery thing would be like, okay, Call of Duty is 200 gigs, but that's for the entire game. So if you're not going to play the multiplayer, then we don't install that. But furthermore, if you're playing the single player and you're like not to the second half of the game yet, maybe we wait to install the second half, so like we can drop content that you're already past and then download content that you're about to come to.
And there have been examples of the game industry doing that. World of Warcraft got to the point, I know, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago now, where the trial version installer was like 20 megabytes and it just streamed the game to your computer as you played, because they knew, okay, you're going to start in this zone, we're going to stream all those assets, and it's going to take you a couple hours to get to level 10 and go to the next zone, so we'll start caching that in the background. So that's an example of just in time kind of delivery optimized based on your play. And I know Apple was trying to get file sizes down for games. So they do something similar, but they actually do what you're suggesting, where once you beat level 1, it actually deletes it off your phone, and it keeps level 2, 3, and 4 kind of ready to go. And it handles all that for you automatically. Call of Duty, in their defense, does have manual options to say, I do want this, I don't want that. But, it's a little kludgy.
Well, yes and no, though.
And it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Because, there's the whole, you have to have Warzone installed as the base, and then you can pick and choose what you want after that. At least that's how it was.
True.
Yeah.
No, and I think it still is. You have to have Modern Warfare is the base for Warzone, so you can not install single player for Warzone or for Modern Warfare, but that's kind of the limitation.
Well, right. I just wish it.
What, like with Call of Duty Cold War, it doesn't even use the same stuff. It's just that this other game has to be installed. It's a whole separate game that launches. So why do you force me to have the second game installed in order to play this one? Because I will never play Warzone. Get that off my disc. Weird, right?
Well, and they're pushing Warzone because that's how they make money, right? It's free to play. It's all cosmetics.
I mean, I know why they do it, but it's
yeah. It's not technical.
Play it, so we're going to make sure it's there.
Right. All right, Hunter, what do you want to talk about next? I think I hit on. There was one more I was going to talk about real quick.
Go ahead.
Xbox Series X is getting Dolby Vision HDR for games soon, which is kind of interesting. Dolby Vision is an improved version of the HDR specification. It has support for dynamic HDR-ness. So scene to scene, moment to moment, the game can change the dark point and the bright point of the scene, which means it basically just allows your TV to do a better job of representing those colors. It also supports up to 12-bit color spaces, which traditional HDR is only 10-bit, and classic SDR, standard definition, or standard dynamic range is 8-bit. So there's no 12-bit displays yet. We don't even know how we're going to make a 12-bit display, to be fair, but it's cool that the technology is ready for it when it comes. So that's kind of a nice little boost. Interestingly, Sony has eschewed all of Dolby's technology, where Microsoft seems to be diving in head first. So it's kind of an interesting delta between the two systems.
Yes.
All right, sorry, Hunter. I flipped that one in, but please.
No, you're good. I mean, we've really covered quite a lot, and I think that might honestly do it, unless there's anything else that sticks out to you directly.
I mean, I
okay.
Had a whole
No.
For the
talk about the Bungie thing real quick. Do you know what do you know about this?
Oh, yeah, this is so. One of my intense frustrations is when technology allows us to do something and it's pretty easy, and there's, it's a solved problem, but it's the business around the technology that prevents us from doing something really cool. And a great example of this is crossplay. It has come out of we talked about this last news show. It came out of the Epic, Apple, Google lawsuit that PlayStation was requiring crossplay games to pay them revenue based on the earnings on other platforms. So if 50% of your player base is on PlayStation, they should get 50% of the DLC revenue, even if only 40% of the players bought stuff on PlayStation. That was one of their conditions, Sony's conditions for enabling crossplay. And so a lot of games have chosen not to do that because they don't want to pay Sony all that money, potentially, or however much it is for the game. So crossplay has been nerfed because Sony are a bunch of dicks, is the way I see it. And I understand they're protecting their business, and they have those players. They don't, they want to be compensated. I get it. I just still say, screw them. And the most humorous example of this is Bungie recently accidentally enabled crossplay for Destiny 2 in a recent patch, and they then went a few days later with an emergency patch and disabled it again. But what this tells you is the entire infrastructure is there to enable crossplay, to allow crossplay. But they don't want to do it because they don't want to comply with Sony's business terms. Now, the one thing I do wish is that these game makers would take a stand, grow a pair, stand up to Sony, and release crossplay for everything, every other system except PlayStation. Because that would shine a spotlight on this issue and force Sony to the table to renegotiate these ridiculous terms. I suspect they are not allowed to by the terms of their agreements with Sony, is the reason why we don't see that happening more often, though.
The true embarrassment is if it works on the Nintendo, but it doesn't on theirs. Because then it's just like, okay, hey, we got a deal going with the most ass backward company about online things.
Yep.
Still have crossplay with them. So, it's like
get your head out.
Yeah, it's a dance off with Sony, right? We just busted a move and then we just kind of stand there and
this just pushes my buttons, right? Like,
you want to know what grinds my gears?
What really grinds my gears? No, I mean, just, oh god, crossplay. If every game had crossplay and cross progression, what a wonderful world! What a wonderful. I can't talk. What a wonderful world it would be, because we could all use the hardware that we prefer and still play with all of our friends.
What is their thing? No. Is it microtransaction stuff? Like, we don't want people able to...
Because these games are all largely funded by microtransactions, and the, Sony, Microsoft, all these companies take a percentage of those microtransactions. What Sony is saying is, if we have 50% of the players, you have to pay us the difference between our actual earnings from microtransactions and 50% of the earnings.
So, and I feel that they're also doing that because they don't. Okay, it's Fortnite. Okay.
Yep.
The elephant in the room. Because if you look at the install base of Fortnite, it's like 75% of console players are on PlayStation that are playing Fortnite for some reason. Maybe out there
over half, I remember. Yeah,
right.
It was,
so they're trying
very
to,
significant.
They're trying to hold on to that kingdom, because if you want to play with your friends, you can't leave.
Right.
So
you're absolutely correct. They are trying to enforce the social network effect. As a gamer, though, I want to play with my friends, and I don't think I should have to buy another $400 or $500 console to do that. And I certainly don't think that I should have to start my goddamn game over and re-unlock all the stuff I've already unlocked and potentially paid for on another system just to be able to play on, with my buddy who loves his PlayStation. Like, I just think that's ridiculous.
Well, there's two things in play here. One is crossplay, where I can play a game with people that are
buddies,
on a different platform, right? But multiplayer will matchmake across.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing, though, my wife is calling me. That's timing.
So there's cross. Well, I was gonna say there's a couple different things. There's cross play, which is, hey, matchmake me against anybody in, playing this game regardless of platform. Then there's cross-platform parties where Hunter is playing on PlayStation, I'm playing on PC, and we can play together in a party on the same team. And then there's cross-progression. So all of those are related, but certainly different specific details of the implementation. But the reality is, all of this stuff gets stored in a database, right? If it's an online game, they know Xbox player Mellified has, is level 17 and has this crap on his character. there is zero reason they can't say player ID 7,436 is Mellified on Xbox, Mellified on Steam, and Mellified_man on PlayStation, because he can't change his goddamn gamer tag on PlayStation because fuck you, Sony, learn how to program.
Right. At this point, and I think it's gotten pretty evident, in my opinion, at this point on this show, that there's quite a few of us that have just been very disappointed in Sony. Like I think the PlayStation 2 was the pinnacle of them. They had a pretty good, decent run with the PlayStation 4. They're probably going to come out with a couple of pretty good games here in the next year or so, but at this point, they've just so gone far and beyond being a disappointment to me that
I feel like we've really blown our odds of being sponsored by Sony.
No, that's true.
And I don't hate Sony. I want them to do better, right? If they would think about the gamer first and stop worrying so much about every penny, they would be much more successful, in my opinion, because people would feel a sense of loyalty to their brand. Yeah, everything that they do drives me away from their brand.
If you worry about money too much, you make less. So
yes.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, admittedly, Microsoft is setting buckets of money on fire right now with Game Pass, right? They have to be losing money on Game Pass. And they're doing it to buy an audience. And the same thing with Epic giving away a game every week. They're buying an audience for their system, but I still think you can find a happy middle ground without throwing money away.
I don't think they're losing as much money as we think that they're losing, though. I'm sure there's some operation at a loss going on, but I don't think it's as ridiculous as we think it is. But
I'm just going off of the number of people I know who took advantage of some of the loopholes to get 3 years for, pennies on the dollar, and are paying less than $4 a month effectively for Ultimate for the next 2 years.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I did it too. Don't misunderstand me. But what I'm saying is, at $4 a month average, revenue per player, there's no way that they're making money. At 15 or even 12, I suspect they are. But I don't know what percentage of the player base. Like, we're all the smart gamers, so we know how to get the bargains. I don't know what percentage of people who buy into Game Pass are the smart gamers who have figured that stuff out, if that makes sense.
Be careful, Jim's still in the room. Hold on.
Yeah. So the thing the thing that is more important to me than the crossplay, right? Like, crossplay is great, especially for a game that is chiefly multiplayer. Like, that's cool, because then the game will not die off because, all the Xbox players quit, but the Sony players are still playing it. But I'm an Xbox player, right? Yep. Now I can't play my game anymore. And there are brand new games that get sold on Steam every day that are multiplayer only that will never have enough people to make a full team. Yep. Right. So, that's a problem. But whenever you have crossplay, it doesn't matter if nobody's playing it on the PC. If I'm the only one, that's fine.
And that's the incentive right there for the game makers to do crossplay, right? Is you increase the size of your player base.
Yeah. The other thing, and that's good for long tail, right? Like we were talking about, digital platform also is long tail, because you don't have to worry about shelf space being taken away, and you can't make sales if you're not on display, right? So you have your own infinite shelf space, right? So that problem went away. Well, now we also need the thing that will go away is player attention. So if you divide that into buckets, then if a particular bucket runs out of attention, then it dies. But if you have crossplay, it sustains longer, which is good for sales on all platforms, wherever, right? So, but the thing that Game Pass drove home to me is being a super important thing, and has become a consideration, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, we're giving away all this stuff to draw people into our store, and whatever. Well, the thing that I would use the Microsoft Store for, not just for Game Pass, right? But the reason that I would actually purchase games in the store is Play Anywhere. If I can play it on the PC, or I can sit in the living room and play it, and if it uses cloud saves, if it actually will load my PC save on my Xbox, which is a rare bird, but still, you made a sale. Like, I could buy it on Steam and then have to buy it separately on the Xbox, or if I buy it in one place, then I have the liberty to sit anywhere in my house and play this thing. Then that's a win, right?
Yeah.
So I wish that there was some way of having like cross-platform ownership of a license to a title, and it wasn't by store. So it's like, hey, I already own this on Steam. Can I just sit in the living room? No. Right. But I understand that it's a money thing, because people want to make the sale in their store and keep the money, and then you shouldn't be able to use it on somebody else's platform because the person that has the store for that platform wanted the money. But I'm unlike some people in the room who double dip on games, on all their platforms. I don't. It's just like, well, I know I'm in front of the PC most of the time, so that's where I put my stuff. But if I buy things with the option to play it in the living room, I am more apt to actually go in the living room, which the living room thinks I'm dead.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense, and I hope that Microsoft is able to drive more of that. The one normally I'm very cynical about these things. The one bright spot, and I know Hunter is chafing at the bit to get us to wrap up. So I'll just say this. The one thing that gives me hope is Disney Key Chest, which is the underlying technology behind Movies Anywhere, where every major studio except one and a bunch of minor studios all agreed that you owned a movie if you bought it from one of the digital storefronts. It unlocked it in Movies Anywhere, and then all the other storefronts had to offer you that movie. So I bought all my stuff on Apple. I can go watch it from Google Store. I can watch it from Microsoft Store. I can watch it from Vudu and a handful of others. And this happened organically. It happened naturally. It was not legislated. Nobody forced them to do it. All of these major companies got together and did something that was actually good for the consumer. They had their own reasons, I'll admit, for doing it. But it gives me hope.
Yep.
How can you let that happen?
I totally agree. I'd love to see something like that happen as well. Well, we've definitely had a very interesting and good discussion episode. Again, this has been interesting, but we're still running our giveaway. Our numbers are slowly increasing all the time over on our Discord, so head on over to discord.OtherWorldsGG. Join in the conversation over there. We had our community night last night where we played some Halo Wars 2, which was a lot of fun. Mellified and I beat up on his kids. They played, and that was a lot of fun. A pretty good time. We streamed a little bit of that over on our Twitch, so if you go to twitch.tv/OtherWorldsGG, you'll probably still see, at least for the next week or so, a VOD of that. I think I saved the VODs. I'll have to double check. Maybe I'm speaking on my butt, but who knows. But yeah, we're still running our $25 giveaway. We're going to do 4 Amazon gift cards, one a week, $25 each for 4 weeks. Once we reach 100 people in our Discord, so come on over and participate in that.
Bring your friends.
Bring your friends. Tell your friends. Of course, you can find this podcast almost pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. Really, we're on Amazon. We're on the Apples. We're on the Googles. We're on the Spotifys. Hey, and we're even on the YouTubes. This has been episode number 20, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeehaw.